We're either going to make a deal or we're going to finish the job, okay? And it won't be tough to finish the job. I'd rather make a deal because I don't want to affect 91 million people. We can knock down their bridges in 1 hour. We can knock out their energy supply, all of those big plants that they built, big, beautiful, modern plants. They had a lot of money. They don't have any money now.
The ledger: promised versus paid. America promised to rebuild the country it had just spent 4 months bombing. Here is the deal on one page, in 2 columns. In the first column, what Iran was promised: at least $300 billion for reconstruction, sanctions on its oil lifted, roughly $24 billion in frozen assets released, and a number big enough to carry home as proof it had made America pay for the war. In the second column, what any actual government has committed toward that $300 billion: nothing. The president says not a cent of it is American. His Secretary of State says allied nations will not be asked to chip in. Qatar's prime minister calls the figure, in his own word, aspirational. Iran walked out of the room holding a $300 billion number. Nobody walked in holding a checkbook. The president was blunt about it. There is no $300 billion payment to Iran by the United States, he wrote. That's fake news. Every argument in Washington right now is about the obvious question. Is Donald Trump really about to hand Iran $300 billion? Democrats say he is. The president says it is fake news. And it is the wrong question, because the fight over whether the check is real distracts from the stranger fact that the check was never meant to be written by anyone. The right question is why you would put a $300 billion promise into a peace deal that no one intends to fund, and who that number is actually for. By the end of this, that number will make sense, not as a payment, but as the single most useful line in the entire agreement, doing 3 different jobs for 3 different audiences at once. Everyone is calling it a Marshall Plan for Iran. It is closer to the opposite. Call it the Marshall Mirage. The mirage that holds the deal together. A mirage is not a lie. A lie is empty. A mirage is useful. It makes people walk towards something that is not there, and it keeps them walking. That is what paragraph 6 of this memorandum does. It takes a number engineered to look like generous reconstruction, and it lets 3 parties each see in it exactly what they need. Iran sees reparations. Trump's base sees a deal that costs America nothing. The Gulf states and their companies see a conditional investment they can walk away from. The number holds the deal together precisely because it has never been pinned down. Everything that follows is one more inversion of the plan everyone keeps comparing it to. What a real Marshall Plan actually was. Start with the real Marshall Plan, because it is the template being borrowed. In 1948, the United States gave Western Europe about $13 billion to rebuild from the Second World War. More than $150 billion in today's money. Gave. Grants, not loans. American taxpayer money handed over with no expectation of repayment, for one cold-blooded reason. A rebuilt Europe would be bound to the United States and walled off from the Soviets. The money was real. It was enormous. And it was America's own. Now read the new promise against the president's own words about it. The document commits the United States, with regional partners, to develop a plan with at least $300 billion for the reconstruction and economic development of Iran. The president says there is no payment, and it is fake news. The vice president says not a cent is American. And the people briefed on the actual structure describe something that is not reconstruction aid at all. A private investment vehicle, no government grants, companies from South Korea, Japan, the Gulf and beyond, putting money into Iranian energy, steel, refineries and airports, where they expect a return. Think of it less as a rescue and more as a prospectus. The Marshall Plan gave. This one invites investors. That is inversion number 1, and it is the smallest of them. The funder who doesn't exist. If not America, then who? For a while the administration had an answer. The Gulf. The vice president said the fund would be backed by what he called a Gulf Coast coalition if Iran behaved. Not a cent of American money goes to Iran, he said. There was one problem. The Secretary of State said the opposite, that regional allies would not be asked to contribute at all. When the 2 most senior foreign policy officials in the same government cannot agree on whether America's closest allies are paying, the fund does not have a mystery funder. It has no funder. And the Gulf's own reaction explains why. These are the countries Iran spent the war attacking. Missiles and drones into Saudi, Emirati, Bahraini, and Qatari infrastructure. Now they are asked to pay to rebuild the country that bombed them. As one regional analysis put it, the fund risks rewarding aggression and undermining deterrence. The Emiratis have signaled they would consider it only if it were conditional, phased, and tied to verifiable Iranian restraint, which is diplomatic language for not yet and maybe never. Qatar's prime minister called the whole $300 billion aspirational. A committed paymaster is what the Marshall Plan had on day one. This has a food fight over the bill. Reparations rebranded as development. So, if it is not American, is not grants, and has no funder, where did $300 billion even come from? Follow it back, and the mirage sharpens. Iran did not ask for reconstruction. Iran asked for reparations. $400 billion in compensation for a war it says Washington started. The United States refused to pay reparations, and out of that refusal, the fund was born. A way to hand Iran a giant number to take home without America ever admitting it owed a cent. Reparations, rebranded as development. Now hold that number against the damage. The president himself acknowledged the United States and Israel had done at least $1 trillion of harm to Iran since February. So the celebrated $300 billion, if it ever appeared, rebuilds less than a third of what America just broke. In plain domestic terms, one Republican congressman pointed out the figure is 5 times what Congress spends on America's own roads and bridges in a year. Democrats ran the same math the other way, that $300 billion could end homelessness or fund cancer research for decades. And then the irony that turns the whole thing over. This is the president who in 2018 tore up Barack Obama's nuclear deal and called it the worst ever negotiated, a deal whose great sin, in his telling, was unfreezing about $50 billion for Tehran. This new number is 6 times larger. One senator, an Iran hawk in the president's own party, said it would make Iran's payoff under Obama's deal look like a pittance by comparison. The man who built a decade of politics on the claim that $50 billion was a scandalous giveaway just signed his name beside 300. The only money actually moving. Here is the part lost in the $300 billion shouting match. There is real money in this deal, just not there. It is in a separate clause, paragraph 11, the one on frozen assets. Iran has roughly $24 billion frozen around the world that the agreement promises to release, including about $6 billion sitting in Qatar. Money parked there from South Korean banks back in 2023. The clause is plain. The United States shall make fully available all frozen or restricted Iranian funds and assets. And that money has already started to move. Quietly, before any final deal is signed. During the negotiations, Qatar was allowed to give Iran access to a slice of those funds as a confidence-building gesture. Doha, buying a little insurance. Its own Ras Laffan gas complex had been damaged by an Iranian drone during the war, and it very much did not want a repeat. According to one account, some of those payments were even disguised as fees for tankers passing through the Strait of Hormuz. So while the world argues over a $300 billion fund that may never exist, a much smaller, very real river of Iran's own frozen cash is already flowing, routed through the Gulf state most afraid of being hit again. The mirage gets the headlines. The transfer happens in the footnotes. Strip it down and it's a leash. Notice what every version of this money has in common. It is conditional. Iran gets access only if it dismantles its nuclear program, surrenders its enriched stockpile, and submits to inspection. The money was never a gift. It is a leash. A promise of prosperity held just far enough ahead to keep Tehran walking in the right direction. There is only one problem with a leash. It has to be attached to something. A leash of real, delivered money can pull a regime a long way. A leash made of a number no one will fund pulls nothing. And the moment it snaps, it teaches. Because this is not the first time. In 2018, Iran was complying with the last nuclear deal when the United States walked away from it. Tehran learned then that an American promise has an expiration date. Now Washington is asking Iran to dismantle its program again, in exchange for a fund its own Secretary of State will not ask anyone to pay for. That is the self-defeating irony at the center of the Marshall mirage. A reconstruction fund built to look generous but engineered to cost America nothing can only buy Iran's disarmament if Iran believes it will be paid. And every feature that makes the fund politically convenient, no American money, no committed ally, an aspirational figure, is a reason for Tehran to conclude it never will be. The verdict: a mirage, not a Marshall Plan. So where do the layers point? On the plain facts, the verdict is not close. The $300 billion reconstruction fund is not American money, is not government money, is not grants, is not reparations, and as of today, is not yet real. It is a number the president disowns, the Secretary of State will not fund, and the Qatari Prime Minister calls aspirational. Whatever it is not what its name says. But the harder question is left open on purpose, because the evidence genuinely splits. There is a serious case, the Emirati case, that dangling investment, even conditionally, pulls a regime towards stability better than isolation ever did. That a mirage people keep walking toward can still lead somewhere real. And there is the opposite case. That a carrot everyone can see is hollow controls nothing, and that promising $300 billion you cannot deliver is worse than promising nothing. The strongest defense deserves its due. This is clever statecraft. Disarm Iran with other people's money, keep the number vague so negotiators stay flexible. Fair. But flexibility and credibility are opposites here. A carrot only works if the donkey believes in it. And when the man holding the leash keeps announcing to the crowd that the carrot is not real, and he is certainly not paying for it, the donkey is listening too. If Iran dismantles its program for a fund that then evaporates, the United States will have taught every regime that owns a bomb, and every regime that wants one, the most dangerous lesson in non-proliferation. That disarming for a Western promise is how you get bombed twice. The 60-day test. What to watch. Which is what the next 60 days are really testing. Not whether Iran gives up its centrifuges, but whether a single funder with a single real checkbook ever walks into the room. Watch for that above all. Any Gulf state committing actual money instead of warm words. Watch the sequencing fight, whether Iran must dismantle before a dollar is pledged, or after. Watch the frozen asset releases in Qatar and the Emirates, because for now that quiet trickle is the only money in the entire deal that is genuinely moving. And watch Congress, where a bipartisan crowd is already asking why a war-weary country is promising hundreds of billions to the government it just finished fighting. If Iran is asked to give up its nuclear program before a single funder has pledged a single dollar, which side in this deal is really being asked to move on faith? And the harder one. If the reconstruction money turns out to be a mirage after Iran is already disarmed, what will the world have just taught every other country that owns a bomb, or is quietly building one? Our update continues. Stay tuned.